Infrared transforms the world. Glowing leaves, surreal skies, dreamlike landscapes. I've used DSLR cameras that have been converted to infrared and infrared filters for infrared photography. I prefer the camera over the filter. The filter, you need to have really long exposures. The cameras are more expensive, but in my opinion, they are totally worth it. Now, I want to share one really important thing you need to know about shooting infrared with a DSLR, because the way your camera measures infrared light changes depending on how you use that camera. Infrared photography captures light we can't normally see. DSLRs actually have a filter on them that blocks infrared light. So when you convert your camera to infrared, you have to take that filter off and replace it with an infrared filter. Now, different infrared filters are defined by wavelengths that are measured in nanometers. The higher the number, the less visible light gets through. For example, a 590 nanometer filter allows some visible light in, but it produces false color effects. The higher you go, the more the filter blocks visible light, moving towards pure infrared. I chose a 780 nanometer filter for my camera. Very little visible light gets through. It's great for black and white infrared, glowing foliage, dark skies, and dramatic contrast. Even stronger filters, like an 850 nanometer filter, blocks all visible light, would give you a true monochrome infrared image. For my conversion, I used a thinner filter. I used a 1mm filter. And the idea behind that is it's going to reduce the focus shift and make infinity focus more reliable with this camera. I like to shoot RAW and JPEG. RAW gives me all the data, and a JPEG gives me an instant black and white image. I really love the infrared black and white look. The best conditions are bright sunlight, even midday sun. Foliage is glowing white, grass, trees, leaves. The sky is deep, dramatic, dark tones. Clouds often bright and pop with strong contrast. Water often goes dark, adding mood. There is an infrared issue with DSLR cameras. The conversion places the filter over top of the sensor. So if I'm looking through the viewfinder, the meter doesn't account for the filter, which means all my images are consistently underexposed. Now, I can use exposure compensation, and that's usually between 2 and 4 stops, depending on the light of the scene. But if I switch to live view, the image comes directly from the sensor, which already accounts for the filter. So no exposure compensation is needed. But switching back and forth means that I'm always fiddling with exposure compensation. So there are pros and cons to using the viewfinder and live view. Now, the pros of using the viewfinder is that my autofocus is great. It's easier for me to compose in bright sunlight. The cons are that the exposure meter is inaccurate. That requires me to constantly check my results and adjust exposure up or down. Now, with live view, one of the great things is what you see is what you get. You can see the final infrared effect before shooting. It's perfect for creative high and low angles, using the tilt screen on my camera. Now, some of the cons are that the autofocus is slower, it can be hard to see the screen in really bright light, and burst mode can be difficult because I can't see in between the frames. I just see a black frame as I take a bunch of photos. It's important to note that this is a DSLR problem only. This doesn't have an effect if you have an infrared converted mirrorless camera. Mirrorless cameras, both the EVF and the back screen, are live sensor feeds, so the exposures are always accurate. If you're shooting an infrared mirrorless camera, you don't need to worry about this trick. But I find that most conversions are done on DSLRs. Somebody might buy a newer mirrorless camera and convert their older DSLR into an infrared camera. So my solution on the D750, I use user settings 1 and 2. I set up user setting 1 for live view, so no exposure compensation, and I turn image review off because I know what the picture is going to look like beforehand. When I change to user setting 2, then I'm going to use the viewfinder. I start with around +3 exposure compensation. I have image review on so I can double check the results. Now, switching is instant. I just rotate the mode dial and I can go in between them depending how I want to shoot. Check your camera. Maybe you have custom modes, function buttons, or other shortcuts that you can use to create a fast switch. Once you do, shooting infrared becomes more fluid and fun. So the key idea, the filter is on the sensor and that changes how your DSLR meters light. If you're looking through the viewfinder, you need to add exposure compensation. If you're using live view, it's going to be accurate without any adjustment needed. Custom setups like user 1 and user 2 or something similar in another camera model makes infrared shooting seamless. How do you like to set up your infrared camera? Do you have any favorite filters? Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or thoughts, please share them in the comments below. If you like the content I'm creating, please consider subscribing. Thanks so much.